Welcome to Empire Building, the podcast where we talk about building big businesses and even bigger lives. I'm your co-host, Wendy Papazian.
And I'm Via Williams. Today is unique and special to me because I am going to do a one-on-one interview with Wendy today.
Yay.
This is different.
I'm so excited. Just the two of us.
Just the two of us. And, you know, for a lot of you guys who listened to the episode where Wendy did a one-on-one interview of me, it will be no surprise that this is going to be kind of a financial biography interview, maybe a net worth biography. Might be a better way to say it. Your wealth journey, if you will.
A WJ.
Oh, there you go. Didn't even know that was a thing. WJ. I think
I just made it a thing.
You just, Wendy the wordsmith just made it a thing.
That's right. It's a thing now.
Wendy, you know, Wendy's not she's one of my closest friends, but she's much more than that. I'm happy to say we're also business partners. We co-host this Empire Building podcast together. And, you know, you guys hear us talk a lot, but what you may not know is in, you know, just over 10 years, Wendy went from being a stay-at-home mom making no income to being one of the largest, most successful real estate business owners in the nation with, you know, a business bringing $3 million and over in revenue a year, keeping in mind that only 2% of women-owned businesses bring in over $1 million in revenue a year. And her husband, Jay, are net worth multimillionaires. And I think, you know, when we say that, it's not to brag and it's not to, you know, build anyone's ego. It's to say that anybody can do this with the commitment and the purpose and the focus. And Wendy and Jay really, I think, exemplify that.
Oh, well, thank you. You know, it's kind of... Yes. And I think it's kind of funny because people always say that, oh, well, if you can do it, I can do it too. And it's vaguely insulting. Yeah. It's like vaguely insulting, but I actually love that because it is really true. You know, I didn't come from money. I had no aspirations really to be wealthy. And I have done repeatable things that anybody can do. Not everybody will do them. But I've done things that anybody can do. And Jay's the same way. And it's just effort plus compounding over time that has equaled success. And it's not that sexy. You know, I'm not going to sell anything on Instagram with my slow and steady approach. But
it's too bad that you're so sexy though.
I know. Well, hey, I'm rich. So there you go.
There you go. I know. It's awesome. Okay. So you mentioned something that I actually think we should start there, which is, you know, what were your views of money or wealth growing up? We all bring some baggage to that table. So kind of walking into this, you know, how did you grow up thinking about money? And when do you think your mind was opened to the concept that being wealthy was something you might want to do?
Yeah. Well, so both my mom and dad had some college. Neither of them graduated from college. And my mom actually grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My mom grew up in California, in Orange County, and her dad owned Tasty Freezes, they sell ice cream. And then he also owned gas stations. And
I've never known that before.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad's family was basically, they were farmers. Although his dad was a carpenter and his mom was kind of a stay-at-home mom. But essentially their whole family were farmers. And my grandmother was the oldest of 11 when her dad died. And she and her mom worked on a farm. So that's kind of the family I identify with because my mom was kind of estranged from her parents and always sort of hated California and hated that lifestyle and thought that her mom was really ostentatious in her spending. So I actually grew up with this idea of like entrepreneurialism is bad, having a lot of money is bad. And I kind of got that from her because we literally never saw our grandparents. I mean, maybe once every 2 or 3 years. And then my dad was the son of parents who grew up in the Great Depression. And so he was just very thrifty, you know, wasn't this abundance mentality. It was just like, let's just save. And So that was my mindset growing up. I mean, we grew up lower middle class. I had a nice childhood. There was nothing horrible about it. I would say it's probably a typical kid that grew up in the 70s. So, yeah.
So you went from the Northwest to New York City.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I went to school in Madison, Wisconsin, and then traveled around the world for about a year and a half, and then landed in New York City. And my first job there, actually my only job there, was interestingly for a woman who owned a small marketing consulting company that helped nonprofits and colleges and universities with their public relations. And she was married to one of the premier real estate brokers in New York City at the time, Clark Halstead. Yeah. And so they were very much an entrepreneurial family. I think I really gravitated towards her. She sadly ended up dying of cancer right as I was moving to Austin, and very young, leaving two daughters. And they were very influential on me, especially when it came to thinking bigger. I'm thinking about money and being an entrepreneur and things like that. So, as we say, who you surround yourself with really matters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we say that a lot. All of us do.
Yeah, for sure.
So, you meet Jay in New York City. You get married, and you move to Austin for a job opportunity. Is that right?
No, I had been to Austin for lots of reasons. And every time I went, I just really loved it. And so Jay and I decided we were going to quit our jobs and take a really long honeymoon. And so we ended up taking a 5-month Mediterranean honeymoon. And along the way, we were going to decide what our next move was going to be. And Jay was in publishing, and there's not a lot of places for publishers. It's New York. And so he kind of took a leap of faith when I said, let's go check out Austin. I think you'll really like it. But we didn't have any jobs. We didn't even actually know a single person in Austin. We just picked up and moved there because we liked the vibe of the city.
That's crazy and awesome all at the same time.
Yeah.
So he got a job working at Keller Williams.
Well, he actually was going to freelance when he started because Jay wanted to pursue his writing. And so I actually had a job, and I had a side hustle as well. So I actually worked for a travel magazine when I was there. And I was an editor. And then Jay was focusing on writing gigs. And so he had several freelance writing opportunities. He worked on a couple of books at that time. He was working on Brandy Chastain's Go for the Goal part-time.
Wow.
And he had a few articles in Texas Monthly. And so he was doing pretty well as a freelancer. I would say that he probably didn't have the focus and determination that he does now, which you really have to sell yourself relentlessly to become a writer and really make a big impact in a big career. So after about 6 months of that, I basically said, listen, your writing days are over. You need to get a real job. So that's when he got his job at Keller Williams. Yeah. Yep.
So what was the income situation back then? Was he the highest paid employee at Keller Williams? That was a leading question. I know the answer.
Yeah. No. So the publishing industry is notoriously underpaid, right? I mean, I made about twice as much as Jay made in New York, and I wasn't making that much. Or at least it didn't go very far in New York anyway. And honestly, I thought that I would always be the moneymaker in our family. I really did. I always assumed it was going to be me. And then, Jay Jay's this kind of person who, once he gets into something, he sticks with it. And then he ends up doing a lot better in the end. He's a disciple of the one
does
thing.
That, doesn't it?
I know. It really works.
Weird.
It's boring, but it works. Yeah. So at the time, I was working for the state of Texas because I'd moved into a different job, and I was making about $40,000. And Jay was making about that too. He was the lowest paid employee at Keller Williams International. And we knew that because someone put a list of everybody and what they made. And it was a small list. There's only less than 20 people there. And it's actually funny because we found that list digging through some old papers when we moved a couple of years ago. We still had it. Yeah, we still had it. Yeah,
and someone planted it on him so he would see it, right?
So he would see it. Yeah, because I think they understood that he's quite talented and he was probably underpaid. And it was, it wasn't a startup, but it was just a small company, obviously very concerned with revenue. So, yeah.
So here you are, you're both, cranking and you're making nice salaries, but certainly nothing that, would indicate multimillionaire, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think was kind of the first pivotal event, Wendy, that made you maybe more purposely start this journey?
Well, pretty soon after Jay got working at Keller Williams, there was a mandatory class for everybody at KWRI. And Mo Anderson was going to teach it. For those of you that know Mo, she was at the time the president of Keller Williams. And what's great about KW is that they encourage their employees to start businesses. I mean, there are many businesses that have been incubated out of Keller Williams. And so there was a required class on how to read a balance sheet, right? So having to do with a profit and loss statement. And so Jay showed up fully expecting to be with all 20 of his other employees because he was new. As he looks around, he's the only one there, right? And the Velvet Hammer, as Mo was known back then, is teaching the class. So as he puts it, he was pretty terrified.
It's a one-on-one. That's crazy. I'd be terrified.
It's crazy. Too. I know. And so what is great about that is Mo did not cancel the class. She could have done that easily. She could have said, listen, this is not worth my time. So whenever I'm teaching, even if only one person shows up, I know it's absolutely the right person and they're supposed to be there.
I love that.
And so it's never disappointing to me, the size of the class. And so then Mo sits down and they talk about how to read a balance sheet, how to read a profit and loss statement. And it turns into a discussion about Jay's personal balance sheet, which is essentially a net worth statement. And that was news to Jay. Neither he nor I had ever heard of tracking your net worth or understanding what somebody's net worth was. And wow, what a gift, what a gift that sent us down this road. So Jay came home that day and he said, we need to figure out what our net worth was. And at the time we were renting. So we had just moved from New York City. Rent was only $800 a month. So we're like, why would we buy anything? This is incredible rent. And we had a Toyota Tercel that we shared that eventually caught on fire a couple of years later. So not a fancy car, let's just say that. And a few other assets. Jay had a 401k. I had debt. And at the end of the day, our net worth was about $2,200, which was great. We weren't in debt,
But better than mine was first time I measured it. So yeah.
Yeah, way better.
I didn't know you in front of it.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we were like, what? This sucks. Here we are, we're 30. We've both been working a decade each. So I was like, that's about $100. That's like $100 for every year we've worked. It sucks. So I did not like that.
So what did that lead to? What do you think, was the first big decision that led to?
So immediately we decided we needed to buy a house. We didn't really have enough money saved up for it. So we talked to Jay's parents about getting a small loan so we could put a down payment down. And so we bought our first house. We bought it at the top of the .com kind of bubble in Austin, where home prices were, we thought, escalating dramatically. We bought it for $175,000, and we thought we overpaid for it. We were like, "This is crazy," And I'm from the Midwest. There's no garage. There's no basement. My parents are like, "What? Are you in a trailer park, or what kind of house did you buy?" And so that house we ended up keeping that house. And so we've had that house for about 20 years now.
How much is it worth now, do you think?
Probably $850.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And complete strangers have helped us pay the debt off. So that part's been pretty good.
Well, and that, I think that's probably the next domino is the fact that when you were ready for your second house, right? Mm-hmm. You kept that one.
Yeah. So I got pregnant and we only had one bathroom. And I just knew instinctively that our marriage would be better with a second bathroom.
That's a good instinct.
Yeah, totally. And the house was small. It was 1,100 square feet. And so that was in 2004. And the market had kind of cooled a little bit. But we looked for a long time because we were looking for a bargain. We were really looking for a good deal. We were pretty focused on that. And so we actually got a house that was an estate sale. And I look back and even for the times, it was a bargain. It was a really good deal for us, which we needed because $245.
Wow.
Which we needed because it was pretty much a lateral move for us. And we weren't selling the first house, so we couldn't really make a big jump up. So that was part of our consideration because in 3 years our salaries hadn't bumped up that much. So it was important for us to have that house rents for $4,300 a month. My mortgage payment is about $2,500 a month, and it's worth over $1 million now.
That's crazy. So right there, you're at quick math, a $1.5 million net worth just on those two.
Yeah.
You're a net worth millionaire, not even including your current financial residence, just with those two.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was just our first two houses. And, some of that is the lucky fact that Austin real estate continues to escalate. The home prices in my neighborhood are up 67%. And, we have 3 houses now in this neighborhood. So it's great.
Well, yeah, that's true. But in a lot of our markets, we can kind of cheat that way, right? I mean, when I look at my net worth, it's, right now, I think it's like 80% of it's real estate. And that's probably pretty typical. Of
ours is about 60. Yeah.
What happened after that? Because I think what happened after that is you guys kind of got focused and really started setting some goals.
Yeah. So what happened after that, actually, before we bought our second house, we decided we were going to set some big goals for ourselves because we were like, well, it's one thing to track your net worth. It's another thing to have a goal around your net worth and work towards it.
Hey, Wendy, maybe we should define net worth really quick. I don't know. Maybe that's too basic, but I feel like, why wouldn't we?
Yeah. Well, so your net worth is everything you own. So all of your assets, your house, car, rental properties, 401k, cash in the bank, everything you own, minus all your debt. So everything you owe, which is, car mortgage, house mortgage, credit card debt, medical debt, school debt, all that stuff. And so that number is different than what most people think they should be measuring. Most people think they should be measuring income, but it's really net worth.
That's right.
It's the true measure. Yeah, it's the true measure.
Income's what gets you net worth, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So you set your goals. What were they?
Yeah, so they were honestly, they felt huge at the time, and they were honestly kind of random. People ask us how we set them, and it was just pretty random. So it was to become net worth millionaires, right? Remember when we started, our net worth was $2,200. To own 10 rental properties, right? Because we did the math and we knew we wanted some passive income. And we said $75,000 in passive income is our freedom number. So we said 10 rental properties will get us there. So that was always kind of what we thought is those 3 things would go hand in hand, which is the 10 rental properties would give us the passive income, would give us the net worth of $1 million. And ironically, we hit our net worth goal and that was our 10-year goals, which was, I thought it was crazy. I honestly did. I mean, I can remember thinking like, okay, babe, whatever, because I didn't believe it was really possible for us. Although I was willing to give it a shot, like skeptical, but, still running towards it with unbridled enthusiasm, kind of thing.
So you set that goal in,
that was probably about 2003, 2002. Okay. We're not exactly sure, to be honest with you, but that was sometime after we bought our first house and before we bought our second house. So it was in there somewhere.
Give or take, just out of curiosity, how do you remember the year you found out or that you did hit being net worth millionaires?
Yeah, it was about 6 years later. So I can tell you, I've actually got my little historical
net worth. I have it in front of me. I just wanted to see how you'd answer that. So here's, I guess, when you say net worth millionaire, do you include your primary residence in that?
We do. Yep,
yeah,
we do.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Not everybody does.
Yeah.
But we've always done that.
So what I have in front of me is you set your $1 million net worth goal right around 2005 and you hit it at 2013.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It's interesting because I see this upwardly rising chart, but I actually see a little dip. What happened there in 2010, 11?
So we got really, I think the big goal spurred us forward. And then at the same time, I quit my job in 2004 and I had my children in 2004 and 2005. So I had time on my hands to do more stuff. And at the same time, Jay and Gary co-authored The Millionaire Real Estate Investor. And so that all those things kind of spurred us towards buying more real estate. And it was quite easy to buy real estate, if you remember back then. Mm-hmm. And so we bought several properties in 2005 and 2006. We bought a piece of land in Travis Heights in Austin, and we subdivided it and sold that off. And then we got involved with a building. It was kind of a scheme, I guess, where a builder used our credit and was going to build a house, and then we were going to split the profits. And that turned out to be, a calamity of the bubble of the recession. So all of those things happened kind of in sequence. And so that's why our net worth dropped. Was one, we had a house in Marble Falls where the builder, ended up just leaving, and we were stuck with a house that wasn't finished and ended up $150,000 in debt before we could finish it.
So you were doing income producing real estate activities, what I would call. You were building, developing, and flipping in order to increase your income, to then buy assets to increase your net worth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the best example of that is we bought a piece of land. It took us over a year to subdivide it. Like, just the process in Austin is slow. We got a loan from someone, someone brought the deal. And then we took that cash from the subdivision and we dumped it into another house that we renovated, and we were going to flip it. Mm-hmm. We actually ended up keeping that because the market started tanking in Austin. So we had to keep that as a rental because we couldn't sell it.
Do you still own that one?
I do. Actually, do you know what's really crazy about that? Is my current tenant in there, when I was looking up her, she was living with her parents and moving out. And when I looked at her address, it was actually a house that was built in that subdivision. Wow. And then we took that money and we used it to purchase the house that she was now renting, which was a really crazy world. Yeah. I was like, I think I've done a lot of real estate deals when kind of crazy stuff like that happened. I'm sure you approved that application. Yeah. Yeah. It was great. It was funny.
So it's safe to say that this wasn't a straight line up to the top, that there was, you had your own fair share of disasters and fails along the way.
For sure. Yeah. Our first flip was a flip we did with Dave Jenks and another partner. And it was, we made so many mistakes that we didn't end up making any money. I mean, it was like a learning experience for us. I think maybe we made $500 that we split 4 ways and weren't paid for all of the sweat equity we put into it. And then, that building deal in Marble Falls ended up costing us $150,000, and we just paid that off a few years ago. So,
wow.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So if you made your first $1 million in 2013, you had some ups and downs, and, how many homes did you own by then to get to that first $1 million?
Probably maybe 1, 2, 3, probably 6.
6. So you lived in one, and then you had 5 rentals.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that. Yeah.
And a lot of them were homes you had lived in, you bought as owner occupied. And
two of them were, yeah. And then the rest were rentals. Yep.
Okay. That you bought directly as rentals. And so by now, I'm assuming, if you did that many acquisitions that you were working, I'm assuming that you were bringing more income into the household in order to do that.
Yeah. So at the end of 2009, my son went to kindergarten. So I decided to get my real estate license. And I really wanted to get my license to save money on investment properties because that's how I viewed myself. That's how I introduced myself, was a real estate investor. And trophy wife, of course.
Of course.
And so that was my primary reason for getting my license.
Maybe Jay's the trophy husband. I haven't decided.
He is.
It's a little both.
For sure he is. Yeah,
both,
for sure he is. Yeah, so that first full year in 2010, I ended up selling 18 houses working part-time.
Wow. And
I made about twice as much money as I ever made at any previous job. And then that next year, I made over $100,000, also working part time.
Wow!
And so I was like, wow, I think I could make a living out of this. And so, to be honest, at that point, I don't want to say I abandoned real estate investing, but I definitely put it on a back burner as my kids were getting older, and growing the real estate team required a lot of effort. And had we just hit our 10 rental property goal this month, actually.
Oh, wow.
And had the real estate team not showed up, for sure, we would probably own many, many, many more properties, but it's the hassle factor has been minimal. So
what were the economics then? Did you kind of say, all right, like we're going to live on Jay's salary and then we're going to use your real estate salary to invest? Or did you just do a portion of that? What did that look like as you started making more and more income?
Yeah. Well, so, we've always been really clear that work is going to be a choice for us. Every decision we've made has been not made out of financial necessity. It's been because we've had the ability to do what we want, which is we've always lived way below our means, way, way, way below our means. Yeah. And that's the gift I got from my Depression era grandparents.
Yeah.
Just being super thrifty. I have an 8-figure net worth. I still price comparison when I go to the grocery store. I look at the prices of paper plates when I'm there, and I always pick out the ones that are cheaper. And so that kind of mentality has not gone away. And it's as we're wealthier, it's a struggle, honestly. But like that mentality is really how we were able to become wealthy. Is that. And so when I started my real estate team, our goal was to pay off our house we were living in. And so we paid down that debt. We didn't pay it off completely, but we paid it off a lot because we've always wanted to be able to have properties that we own free and clear, because then we can just live in them and there's no mortgage payment, right?
Yeah,
it's just that freedom. And so we were always purposeful about that. And then some of the money then went into investing. And, honestly, Jay was creating other companies, starting other companies. That's when Relic Publishing around that time we started to build that, and then also the One Thing business. And so, but both of those took about 5 years to make any money. So that's what's interesting about our net worth is when we look at it, some of the jumps actually started as a result of something we did 5 years ago. So it's, like I said, it's not always that sexy to think about that, and people just want this instantaneous gratification. But when Jay started the One Thing business, he 7th leveled that business, he was the owner and he didn't work in it. And so all of the profits that it made poured back into the business, poured back into the business, poured back into the business. And I don't think we've actually realized a cent of money from that company. And it's a 6-year-old company. And you can't do that unless you are. That's right. Unless you have the cash reserves to do that. Right. And most people, because they live from paycheck to paycheck to paycheck, they can never do that. They would have had to take money out. And so the growth has slowed. And we were able to do that with my real estate team and these other businesses. And so then all of a sudden, you sacrifice and sacrifice and sacrifice, and you feel poor. We felt poor. People would have been surprised to know what our net worth was. We felt poor. And then all of a sudden you look up and you're like, wow, we kind of made it here. We're financially free.
And I mean, you talk about it. It clearly came naturally to you, but I noticed a hiccup a few minutes ago when you were talking about it. You're like, it's getting tougher to price comparison, and it's getting tougher to do that. Would you say that, that's because that's such a deeply held belief that it's important to you to hold on to that attitude and that mindset?
Well, actually what I meant was that it's tough to get rid of that attitude when I don't need to have it anymore. That was really what I meant when I said that.
Oh, the opposite. Okay.
The opposite. Yeah. So it's so ingrained in me, like probably about 6 months ago, Jay was like, I need a new Kindle. I can't use it unless it's plugged in. I'm like, it's fine. It just plug it in and read it. And he's like, well, I can't take it on the airplane and things like that. And, I don't know how much a Kindle costs.
Get me the Kindle.
Yeah.
The charges.
It's like $99. So I have to check myself in those moments and just be like, okay, we can spend the $100. That's fine. There'll be such a,
Well, if you have to course correct, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is really I think if you read that book by Morgan Housel, The Psychology of Money, he talks about the character traits, the behavior traits that are required. And, a certain amount of thrift is required in order to become wealthy.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And that, as that's a newer habit for me.
Yeah.
But it the good news for everybody is it sets in because I had a milestone moment recently where I became a net worth millionaire on paper. And Wendy I know it was cool. It was a big moment, especially if you listen to my first interview, it was a big moment. And Wendy's like, you're rich. And I remember, we were all celebrating on text, a group of us. And I was like, oh, no. I'm poor. I am poor. Literally, I feel poor. And so, it's 3 years and it's set in enough for me to understand that statement, right? I'm almost much more cautious now, actually. That's why I find it interesting that you're trying to do the opposite. We are 180 on that. I went from that to this,
Yeah. Well, I had a big aha during quarantine, which was, they talk about the 4% rule, and you look at your net worth and you multiply it by 4%. And that's the amount of money you could live off without losing any of your nut. And I'm just like, we're so fine. We're absolutely fine. Yeah. And but it's a blessing to be okay with what you got. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, it's like I'm getting ready for my 50th birthday party, and I'm looking at dresses on tjmax.com. So there you go. So
I can help you with that. Now I am going to intervene.
I need your help.
Thank you. Full on intervening. Literally, you are not buying that dress on TJ Maxx.
No, I'm not really, but I was looking. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So. Well, turn it off. Just we're blocking that somehow. Some IT person is going to listen to this and tell us how to block that from your internet. Here's what I find interesting, and I really want our listeners to hear, Wendy, because I'm staring at the chart and I know the trajectory. If it took, sort of however long, we just said 8 years, 6 to 8 years to get to the first million, how long did it take to get to the second million?
Yeah, just about another year.
That's it. You went from 6 to 8 years to 1 year.
Okay. Yep. Or wait, is that right? Or is it about 2 years? Let me look. It's 2 years, actually. 2 years. And then 2 years for the next million, and then 1 year for the million after that.
And I think that's really important to emphasize. It takes so long for that first million. To me, my next milestone now isn't it's sort of a number. It's like $1 million without my primary residence. That's kind of the next thing for me to strive for, right? And for me, that's a lot because I live in the Seattle, Washington area, and that accounted for a lot. I cheated by living here, but hey, I mean, I made a good.
Yeah. Well, you also had to pay. You also had to pay to buy it and all that stuff.
Made a good decision.
Pay the mortgage over the years. Yeah,
that's right. So, what do you think the biggest lessons are in your journey?
So I think lesson number one is to figure out what the habits are that are going to make you successful. And I'm not a habitual person. I'm just not. It's hard for me to develop habits. I do live with someone who's fairly habitual, and that's really helped me a lot. And it's often me who's kind of forcing us to track our net worth and things like that. So tracking your net worth as a habit and going over it with your partner, if they're willing and able once a month, is huge. Just that awareness. It's like we talk about in episode 6, I think it was, know your numbers. A lot of people are scared because they don't really want to know what that number is.
Oh, yeah. I've been there. It is really scary for a lot of us to actually sit down and commit to tracking our net worth the first time. And I want to encourage everybody to just do it. Rip off the Band-Aid. Everything gets better after that moment. Yeah.
So that habit. And then, of course, the habit of living below your means. If you can live on 50% of what you make, and if you're a younger person, if you're in your 20s listening to this, if you're like me, you ate ramen and mac and cheese in college, and why not roll out into your professional life and continue those habits, right? Have a roommate. I have lots of people. I have many people on my team who are both on my team now and have been on my team before that have multiple income producing properties, and they're still in their 20s. And that's because they kept that mac and cheese and ramen habit. And most of us in this industry feel like we have to look good in order to get business, which is absolutely not true. So, you don't need a fancy car till you can pay cash for it. And the nice thing is I still don't feel like I need a fancy car. I don't care. That's a good habit. Those are two of the main things I would say is like, what are those financial habits? And then set a goal for yourself, right? So it's one thing to aimlessly watch your net worth grow. It's another thing to be very focused on the finish line. And you should have a 10-year finish line, a 5-year finish line, and a 1-year finish line. And it's okay if the 10-year is, you can't figure it out. It's okay. I mean, it's okay if it's not perfect. It's okay because you're still going to be going for that bigger thing that's going to push you to do more. I mean, the year we remodeled our house, we knew we needed a lot of cash to do that, and we weren't willing to take out any debt. And that was the best year of my real estate business because I had a huge goal. And we were able to pay for this remodel with cash.
Yeah, I remember that. That was inspiring. I mean, it was a massive remodel, and the equity you're sitting in just in that home alone is a couple million. So it's crazy. What do you think the hardest part of this was for you?
I think the hardest part for me is, and it's weird because it's really like that abundance mentality, that abundant thinking. I think the hardest thing for me has been raising my financial thermostat. One of the most powerful exercises for me was that exercise in Bold, where you have to put $100 in there and spend it, and then put $200 in there and spend it, and then put $400 in there and spend it. And so expanding my thinking bigger about how I want my life to be, how I want to spend my money, how I want to donate money. That part has been very hard. And the only thing that I can think to say about how I've overcome that is, and I'm still struggling with it, is it's just a minute by minute, day by day, month by month, surrounding yourself by people who think bigger than you. And then all of a sudden you look up and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm kind of a big thinker now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, almost by default, right? It's almost just an accident of your environment at that point, right? Mm-hmm. It's the best hack there is surrounding yourself with people.
Yep.
Wow. So I love that.
That's why, getting in an organization where there's people encouraging you to grow and think and do more is priceless. There's no amount of money that anyone could pay you to be in that environment.
Yeah, for sure.
Will change your life.
I think what's also interesting, if you look at both of our financial journeys and, everybody brings different stuff to the table. Your challenges were not my challenges. My challenges were not yours. Probably the commonalities are the initial upfront time to hit that first million. Look, mine was a little fast track because I'm older. I'm in a different stage in life, but it still took 3 years. And, and I started negative, right? At age 20 something, it's going to probably take 6 or 8 years, but you guys were making 80,000 a year. It wasn't like you were making, hundreds,
Well, 5 of those, I wasn't working. Yeah. So we were making even less. Yeah. I mean, I from 2004 to 2000, at the end of 2009, I wasn't working. So it's just Jay's salary. Had I been working, we probably would have gotten there faster.
Yeah, that's fair. But the accidents, real estate accidents, quote unquote, are how most people are going to get that first million is, just buying right or buying often and not selling, frankly, right? So buying and holding and not selling.
Well, that's the key is just is we've kept everything that we could. We owned a duplex with a partner that we ended up having to sell because we weren't able to refinance it. But for the most part, I wouldn't even say, I bought most of those investments before I was in real estate. So I made some, I would argue, pretty poor choices. Yeah. Our first house is just kind of weird. It's got a weird layout. I bought a house off of Craigslist. We didn't even use a realtor. I don't know what I was thinking. Jay was working for Keller Williams at the time. That I could finagle this deal was like 670 square feet. I know. But, in one of the bedrooms didn't even have a closet in it. I didn't even know to think maybe I should buy a house with two bedrooms with 2 closets in it. I just didn't know. And so any real estate decision you make looks pretty good 10 years.
100% of all real estate purchases will look good in 10 years. I mean, there's nothing that in history that would dispute otherwise. Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Some are going to be better than others, but I think that is a valuable lesson probably in both of our journeys that, if nothing else, buying real estate and holding real estate is going to by default get you there, and you can be more purposeful and get bigger and or faster.
Yep, for sure. And honestly, owning investment properties, it just hasn't been that much work, because again, it's not like I bought 10 houses in 1 year and had to manage it all at once. It was like our first rental property was our first house. We didn't get our second one for 3 more years. So I got 3 years to figure out the systems, and then I've just continued. I mean, I've made every landlady mistake in the book for sure.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. But that's what's cool about this is that, you screwed up, probably bought some weird houses on Craigslist. You made weird landlady mistakes. But, at the end of the day, it's those quote unquote accidents aren't really accidents. Time will manage that.
I think I should buy that URL, weirdlandladymistakes.com.
Just weirdlandlady.com would just work. I know.
Totally.
It's probably already bought. Wendy and I have a habit of buying URLs, especially if it's after 10 at night and we've been out. Anyway, is that too much? Too much? Did I share too much? We've had some doozies on a Monday morning where we're like, whoa, we had a fun weekend. Well, Wendy, thank you so much for, sharing your journey. And I just want to take this opportunity. I'm going to get choked up here, but I want to take this opportunity to thank you for being a friend and mentor to me during this journey, because, it does take people around you that are strong, and you are strong and fierce and always have my back on this and will tell me, things that I don't want to hear all the time. And you being so open with your story and literally sharing numbers, with me, and not just fuzzy numbers, this is my net worth. This is what it looks like. This is what it looked like. And I know your journey by heart, and so I thank you for that. And I hope that by everyone else hearing this, they will also feel that impact. So thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you. And I'm proud of you for taking that that first step. That's really all it does. It begins with deciding what you want and going for it. And, of anyone I know, once you decide something, there's no stopping you. So it's been fun to watch.
I think a lot of our listeners are in the same boat, that it's one thing we all know we want to be. 99% of the population would say they want to be wealthy. That's easy. That's cheap, right? Dreams are cheap. When the rubber hits the road and you rip off the Band-Aid and you actually start measuring your net worth and you go on this journey, it is a hard one, folks, especially if you have been, living behavioral decisions like I have been for 50 years, right? 48 years prior to that. But I can tell you that, you can start anytime. You're not too old. You're not too young. And you might be in the middle somewhere. It doesn't matter. You can start anywhere. And 10 years can completely change your financial thermostat and your financial situation. So.
Yep. And at the end of the day, money is good for the good it can do.
That's right. So,
we'll you never know when you're gonna need it.
We'll do some episodes on that too, on giving back. And I think we already have, but just focusing on that. You building a charity, and there's so many things that we can use these conversations as a foundation to then talk about that. Today, I think it's really good for our listeners to just hear your journey and understand where it started, that it wasn't always here.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Of course. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to Empire Building. If you like what you heard, join our tribe by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform and help us spread the word by leaving a 5-star rating and review. Until next time, wishing you a life worth living. And remember, you are an empire builder.